Well, I think that we knew that we had a broadband problem in Mississippi for a long time prior to COVID-19. This pandemic has forced us to really look that problem in the face and take real action on it, because in just almost a moment's notice, we were forced to swap from going into the office to telecommuting. Mississippians were sent to do distance education. Children were. Healthcare, as far as telehealth, telemedicine, became a staple and is a staple during the pandemic, just to keep normal doctor's visits out of the hospital. So this has put the broadband crisis in Mississippi up front, up close and personal, and I think it's exposed the real digital divide that's in our state. We've got to get this fixed. I mean, there is no time to delay. There is no time to waste. We've got to get the broadband gap filled in Mississippi and give people in rural communities the same quality of life as people who are in more populated areas. Luckily, we've got a lot of good action going on in the legislature right now looking to address this. Legislators, as you know, Sarah, came in 2019, passed the Broadband Enabling Act. Since then, 10 rural electric cooperatives have started the journey to providing broadband, and we're seeing a revolution in our state. We've got to accelerate that, and COVID has showed us why we should. And luckily, we've got a lot of folks on both ends of the Capitol who are interested in this issue. The things that we're fighting are the typical things that we fight a good bit, and those are incumbent providers who simply do not want competition. It's that simple. Many of these providers have had 20 years to go and expand into rural areas, and they hadn't done it. And so much of the fight going on in the legislature right now, as far as much of the broadband, advancing the broadband, has been around those who want to stop progress and will use just almost any tool to do it. We've got some good language that is out there in Senator Carter's bill. I know there's some language in the House that's soon to be coming out, I understand, that are dealing with not only expansion into rural areas, but what can we do with the fiber optic networks that already exist in the state that are out there. Let's put that infrastructure to work. We need an all hands on deck infrastructure package to fix the broadband gap in Mississippi. Yeah, and so I think that there's definitely been a willingness, I think, in the legislature to look at the CARES Act. The language is in the guidance from the Treasury. There's some back and forth on the exact language, but obviously telecommuting, distance education, telehealth, those sort of things have been impacted, and I think one of the wisest investments that could be made in the CARES Act money would be to invest in a long-term solution for broadband, which not only fixes our interim problem, but fixes it for years and years to come. The biggest issue we've had is the Commission, Mississippi's Public Service Commission. We took really bold action, somewhat one of the first in the country, to stop utility shutoffs for non-payment, because we knew jobs, unemployment were going to be a big part of it. That has become an issue as far as bills that were not paid and working through that. But I can say when we lifted the prohibition on shutoffs due to non-payment, we said to the utilities, we expect you to work with customers, we expect you to understand that they're struggling financially. And I think outside of just a handful of complaints statewide, that's worked very well. And so we're transitioning back into somewhat of a normal operation. One of the things in my role this year, I'm president of our National Association of Public Service Commissioners, and I created a nationwide task force last week to look at disaster response preparedness, not just on tornadoes, not just on hurricanes or ice storms, but also on what are the lessons learned during COVID-19 that we need to be cognizant of going forward, because many things popped up dealing with the electric system, gas systems, and others that you wouldn't have thought about with a health pandemic. So we want to take lessons learned and learn from it and make sure, God forbid, we have another pandemic, we've learned some lessons here, so we've got at least a playbook to go from. Well, with our regulation of utilities and their impact on economic development, I would argue we have one of the top maybe 3 or 4 roles in the state in making sure, number one, energy costs stay low so that we can attract businesses to Mississippi. But also one of our charges in the legislative declaration of policy is to take every opportunity to advance economic development of the state. I think the important part of that, number one, is make sure our energy costs are low, our energy is reliable. But then when you come to issues like broadband, when you take issues like natural gas expansion, these are all issues that affect the economy of Mississippi. We've got to take them serious, and I think it's our role at the Commission in coming out of COVID-19 and taking those lessons learned and really helping the utilities be part of the engine that is part of our economic rebuilding. I think we're going to see a lot more things on our desk. We're committed to looking at, for instance, shovel-ready projects. What can we do? We've had plans on the table, and maybe those are ready to go. Let's try to advance that sooner rather than later. Let's get construction jobs going. Let's get people back to work, whether it be building electric substations, natural gas lines to rural areas, broadband to our most rural people. In my opinion, that's one of the best ways we can help bring the state economy back, building our infrastructure, and that's something that, thank God, is a pretty bipartisan, issue that people can coalesce around.